of the MRIs
Well,
from
basically-
2009 and seen? Yeah,
Basically,
three other
basically he
strokes?
has two ways to discharge his duty. Okay? Number one, he can say, I'm referring you back to the neurologist. You gotta go because the neurologist deals with this. The risks are the following. That would have been one way he could have absolved himself. Once he doesn't do that, he becomes responsible for everything. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Saying go see the neurologist doesn't absolve you of anything if you're not actually seeing the neurologist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
The thing is, this guy is gaga also. I don't know that, I mean, he may require, because after this stroke, his memory and his whole...
Yeah, but you see, rules is rules, okay? And the rule is everything is the doctor's responsibility unless he explains the risk of not doing so, and he didn't do it.
Yeah,
What was the
Go ahead.
what was the second way of discharging his
He can do it himself. In other words, he can say, I'm going to work it out myself. So if he doesn't take option number one, he's responsible for number two.
Which he kind of does right up to the edge. He does every other cardiac
Right.
test.
But you see, basically an internist, cardiologist is an internist. They can fulfill their duty by making sure he's sent to them. In other words, he says, are you seeing the neurologist? Okay, I'm going to send you back to Trivedi, or I'm going to send you to a different neurologist. This is the neurologist I wanted you to see. I wouldn't let him do it. And basically, if he doesn't go, these are the risks of not going, and then his response, he would have been absolved of all responsibility. He doesn't do that. Once he just, clones it out and says, okay, follow up neurologist, he becomes responsible for everything.
Well, Mr. Hagmeyer does go back to the primary, and that note says, see your primary, see your ophthalmologist, see your neurologist.
Doesn't matter unless again, it's the same issue. If somebody does, in other words, saying go see the neurologist, you have to ask, are you seeing the neurologist? Okay? Why? Because just because you say go see the neurologist, many patients aren't going to go see them. And you see, if something goes wrong, most of the time you get away with it. But if something goes wrong, you have to say, look, the risks of not going to see the orthopedist, neurologist, cardiologist is the following could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Patients,
I don't know that he has that reasoning.
Doesn't matter. The doctor has a responsibility to do it. There's no stipulation that, basically he's, because the patient is a meathead, the doctor is off the hook. It says every patient, okay, the doctor is responsible up until the point he explains the risks of non-compliance.
Where is that? That's the standard of care, or where do I...
No, that's basically the rules. In other words, when you're dealing with a non-compliant patient, okay, this is the standard for absolving yourself of responsibility. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is what we're taught in our classes by PRI, okay, because courts hold, or at least have held in more than a few cases, if the doctor does not explain the risk of non-compliance, it's the doctor's responsibility. Okay? Because you have to explain, the patient's got to understand it. So there have been even cases where these risks were explained and they used a family translator. I remember one case happened to someone I know. He was an ER, we were training in opto together, but he'd been an ER attending in Delaware, and they lost the case because they used a family member as a translator, and when it came to trial, the family member said, I didn't really understand.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Okay? This was a case in Delaware. So the thing is this is, basically we're taught that the standard for dealing with a non-compliant patient is that you have to explain the risks of their non-compliance. You have to make sure they understand. Once they understand, that's their right to choose their treatment. Up until they understand, that's the doctor's responsibility.
Yeah, there's no note saying what he should...
Well, because
he didn't do it.
Because internists won't do it. Not they didn't do it, they refuse to do it.
Okay.
Well, don't look.
No.
People do dumbass things. That's how we ended up with Obamacare,
Let me ask you, going back to 2005, so he had an MRI of the brain, I don't know, I think he had some balance and whatever. Have you seen this? I hope we sent this to you.
This is nothing to worry about. These are non-specific findings.